The year is 1982. The place is Gijón in Spain. Algeria was making their first appearance at a FIFA World Cup, and they were up against the football giants of West Germany. Considering the North Africans to be an easy introduction to the tournament, the Germans underestimated their opponents and went down to a wholly unexpected 2-1 defeat. Algeria had announced their arrival at football's summit. Despite failing to progress past the group stages, the shock victory was a high point in Algerian football. But 24 years earlier, just playing a match as a national team would have been merely a dream for their assistant coach, Rachid Makhloufi. In 1958, many native Algerians were engaged in a bitter war of independence against their French colonial masters. At the forefront of this battle was the FLN, the National Liberation Front. Thousands were killed in a conflict that scarred both nations deeply. At this time, many footballers of Algerian descent were playing in the French league. Some, like Saint-Étienne forward Rachid Makhloufi, had even represented the French national team. So a plan was formed to bring the war in Algeria to the collective attention of a largely oblivious French public.
This team wasn't formed just to play football. It was formed to give the French people an idea of what had been happening in Algeria between 1954 and 1958. Things had been hidden from them. They weren't aware of this war. That's why the National Liberation Front formed this team, to give them an idea of the seriousness of what was going on.
In a meticulously planned operation, players of Algerian heritage were contacted by the FLN and asked to serve their homeland. It would mean fleeing France and abandoning what for many were good positions with major French clubs to form an Algerian national team.
The FLN began getting in touch with all the players in France, one by one. That way they could prepare themselves to leave France and head for Tunisia, where they'd all meet. During that time, the FLN football team began to take shape. That's how it started, and thank God, that's how we carried on.
Rachid Makhloufi had just won the French championship with Saint-Étienne and had been selected as a member of the French national squad who were about to go to the 1958 FIFA World Cup in Sweden. He faced a life-changing decision.
We decided to reject it all. In spite of our selection, and in spite of the potential fame, money and wealth we could have earned, we went to join up with the National Liberation Front. We wanted to represent Algeria in matches across Europe and the Arab world.
Despite the performances of a team spearheaded by Just Fontaine, the absentees were missed in Sweden. The feeling was that if they'd been there, France may well have beaten Brazil in the semi-final and could have returned home with the trophy. They might have missed out on potential World Cup glory, but to the players the situation in Algeria was so severe they felt determined they had to do whatever they could to help. Players joining the FLN team had to flee France for fear of persecution, and for some there was further personal suffering. The French government was intent on stopping the exit of players. Many were arrested as they tried to cross borders. Makhloufi and Mohamed Soukan were reservists in the French army, and they were prosecuted in their absence, while Mohamed Maouche was caught and imprisoned.
As for Makhloufi and Soukan, the authorities gave them 10 years in prison. They sentenced them to 10 years. And you'd better believe they would have stayed in prison for 10 years if the French had got their way. They would certainly have spent a decade behind bars. But if I'm honest, things worked out well for me personally. Someone at Rheims helped me out a bit. I was only in prison for 45 days, but still, it wasn't easy.
With the players gathered, games were arranged against countries supportive of the cause. The French government tried to ensure that any countries that did play the FLN team would be banned from international football, but the Algerians found that plenty of teams were willing to give them a match.
We played 67 or 68 games and we only lost 11. We were an excellent team. We played all over the Arab world. We played in Jordan, Baghdad, Palestine, Tunisia, Morocco, Libya. We played in other countries too. These were all countries which welcomed us with open arms.
The team's impressive results, including victories over Yugoslavia, Hungary and Czechoslovakia, assured them of an unexpected level of fame and also helped them make their mark in the desired political ways.
These issues allowed the Algerian Revolution to progress a great deal. As one of the leaders of the National Liberation Front, Farhat Abbas, said, the Algerian Revolution advanced 10 years after the football players left their homes for Tunis.
Though the results were important, the message that the team represented was the overriding factor. The aim was to gain recognition, both for the fight for liberation and for Algeria as an independent country.
Everywhere we played, the national anthem was played and the Algerian flag flew. Otherwise, we would not have played. Our officials and all the players wouldn't even have considered entering the field of play if there hadn't been any flags and if the national anthem hadn't been played. Look, when you are a revolutionary, you have many ways to revolt. You don't just revolt with weapons. Everyone has something different with which to fight. And for us, it was football. It was our national spirit. We would see our flags and hear our national anthem and cry. And of course, once independence came, it was a great joy for the Algerian people and for everyone.
Indeed, independence finally arrived in 1962, and the efforts of the FLN team had played no small part in that. They'd brought the issue to the attention of the world. Once the war had been won, the FLN team became Algeria's national team. Some of the players, including Mekloufi, returned to France to continue their careers, except now they were citizens of another nation, one that would soon have a proud football history of its own.